Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Mads, the CEO of Dreaminfluence. Hello.
Hello, Christian. Nice to be here.
Very nice to have you on the podcast. At first, please tell us what is Dreaminfluence.
Yeah, so Dreaminfluence is a platform that connects primarily direct-to-consumer brands with micro-influencers. We define micro-influencers as influencers with between 1,000 and 10,000 followers. We have a curated network across Europe, 30,000 influencers that all have our app where they've been through a vetting session and they kind of have to be approved for the app. And then on the platform side for the brands, we build a platform that helps the brands run and manage their influencer marketing, everything from A to C. So finding the right influencers, being matched with the right influencers, tracking what they do, tracking campaigns, managing campaigns, and paying the influencers in the end. So we basically put influencer marketing on what I'd call semi-autopilot, because it's still humans and it's a human-to-human interaction. Yes. So there's work to be done. But all of the repetitive tasks, all of the legal stuff, all of the contractual stuff, all of the tracking and so on, that's all automated. So you can spend time on what really matters, which is creating a true human connection to the influencer to make them go from influencer to ambassador.
Yes, that's great. And I'd love to know the biggest problem that you solve for companies.
Our biggest problem is definitely as soon as you want to scale your micro-influencer marketing and you work with, let's say, more than 10 micro-influencers, it's not scalable if you don't have a system to help you, and if you don't have a place to find the influencers, get in contact with the influencers and manage the influencers. It just takes too much time. The ROI is not there. So we basically make sure that influencer marketing becomes a scalable marketing channel for these direct-to-consumer brands.
Right. 2 years ago, we tried to do the same thing with micro-influencers, and we had them all in a CRM, but it was not really good, so we didn't know about the influence. That's great. But I'd love to know why you focus on micro-influencers and not really big ones. What's the opportunity here?
So basically, the second biggest reason consumers buy in 2023, and I guess that will be even more going forward, is recommendations. And recommendations traditionally has been friends and family, but it's now also increasingly micro-influencers. So it's a really, really great way to get a strong brand voice. Also, HubSpot and Meltwater did a huge study earlier this year where they found out that, if I remember correctly, 90% of the marketers asked in Europe define community as an integral part of their success. And I think you guys at Tekpon can really talk into that. But they define community as one of the very integral parts of success for their brand. And it's really hard to build community. It's not something that you just do overnight. It's something that really takes a lot of effort. And why should the consumers even care about your community, about your brand? So the way you can kind of hack that is through micro-influencers, because micro-influencers has these really strong, tight-knit small communities. And if you work with a lot of them and you do continuously over and over again with high authenticity, then their communities can become your community. And that's one of the other really big reasons why we believe a lot in micro-influencers. Thirdly, the very big influencers, celebrity, mega, macro, they've found out that it's better to found their own companies now. Look at Mr. Beast, look at Emma Chamberlain, look at the Jenners. Right. They know that they can get the full pie for themselves instead of just being paid a ton of money from a brand to do a collab, and then they get money. That's nice, but they can earn way more by just creating their own company. So it's become too expensive to use these big influencers. It's no longer a good business case.
Absolutely. Thank you for explaining. And I'd love to know if, in your opinion, influencer marketing is here to stay, and why is it good also for B2B? Because traditionally it was for B2C.
Yeah, so B2B is a really interesting space right now when it comes to influencer marketing. There's nobody that's really been putting it on a formula or created a platform for it. I always get the question, will you be doing B2B in the future? And we won't. That's not what we do. But I think there's definitely a huge opportunity. I think one of the players that might be the first to nail it could be Redditus out of Netherlands. If they build a more like of a marketplace dynamic for the affiliates there. There could definitely be something there, but we already see it, right? LinkedIn has now got an influencer tag. It's been a huge thing on Twitter for a while, but the missing piece in B2B influencer marketing right now is kind of the connection between brand and influencer, and kind of making them work together in a very authentic way. That is not only affiliate based, because the trend we've seen in B2C is it all started as affiliate, basically. It was just affiliate. And influencers in the beginning was bloggers, right?
Yes.
If we go back to like the early zeros and early tens, it was bloggers. And they were all using affiliate links to make a living. And then consumers started to understand what was going on, and they started to understand, when I click this link, it actually means that this person is earning money. And is it then truthful? Is it authentic? Is it something I can trust? So over the past 10 years, there's more and more brands in B2C that's moved away from affiliate. And I think we will kind of have to see the same happen in B2B in order for it to become truly successful. Right now, we are kind of at the affiliate stage in B2B. It's not structured. So the first thing that will happen in B2B is somebody structures that affiliate play, and that will live for a long time. But I'm going to predict right now already that the second wave, which will maybe be in 5 or 10 years in B2B influencer marketing, will be without affiliate. And it will be probably through identifying big voices in your customer base or in your kind of ICP sphere, and then have them as advocates. Maybe they get access to a tool for free, or maybe you give them some other incentives, but you somehow make them talk about you in a structured way. And make it fit your overall marketing stack. So it's a huge opportunity right now. I think somebody should start nailing it, because it is definitely a need. I'd be a customer instantly, and I think most B2B SaaSs would put it that way. The challenge right now as a B2B SaaS that wants to do it is that there's no way to find the right profiles. There's no way to figure out how to set up the flow of working, and there's nobody that's kind of indexed who talks about what. And that's what we've done for B2C. We've indexed who talks about what, and who's trustworthy, and who can we actually, as a brand, who can I trust to work with. And we kind of gave them a stamp of Dreaminfluence, kind of validating them. Nobody's done that for B2B yet, but I think somebody should do it, because I'd buy, and I know plenty of people that buy.
Yeah, this is an amazing opportunity. Thank you for sharing your expertise. I'd love to know, what do you think are the top 3 most loved features in your platform?
Okay, so definitely the fact that we have 30K influencers across Europe that are verified and curated. That's by far probably at least a strong contester for number 1, because one of the big challenges if you do it manually is that, you might be able to either stumble upon somebody or through some hashtag search find some relevant profiles, and you think they look aesthetically nice, but you don't really have data on them, and you try to write them, and only 1 in 10 answers you, and maybe then out of those that answers you, 1 in 10 wants to work with you. We flip the coin. You now get inbound from verified profiles with all of the data following those profiles. So that's definitely at least a contender for number 1. The other feature that contends for number 1 is definitely our content library. So what we do when influencers sign up for our app, they agree that if they work with a brand on our platform, the brand owns the content for 24 months, or at least they have the rights to reuse it and redistribute it in their own ads and on their own social media, on their web pages, and so on. And that's just a huge opportunity for the brands, because it's really expensive and time consuming to create your own content and continuously putting new content out there. And if there's something we all know, it is, if you want your ads to work, you need to have a high cadence of creatives. You need to continuously test new creatives, create new creatives, and you need to refresh those ads all the time. Super time consuming, and you need the right people to. It's a creative process. It's not easy. It's really, 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 really hard to do. And thirdly, it just costs a lot of money in opportunity cost, because those people could be doing something
Yes.
else. Now you kind of have a content machine that runs on autopilot, and you already have initial data showing what will work, because the content pieces that went viral, well, there's pretty big likelihood that they will do well in an ad too if you put a CTA on there. So you can kind of get initial data that tells you which pieces of content resonates with our audience, and then you can put money behind that content. So that's definitely a contender for number one. One of those two are number one, and the other number two. And then
Okay.
thirdly, I think the third one is actually hard to choose. But I'm gonna go with campaign management.
Yeah.
So normally, if you don't have a tool like ours, you would have to you do a campaign maybe with 20 micro influencers. You'd have to visit their TikTok or their Instagram daily to see if they posted as agreed, because they have, let's say, a 30-day window to
Yes.
do it. And then you'd have to kind of gauge, okay, how many likes, how many shares, and you had to follow up and put it into an Excel sheet.
Yes.
Not scalable. We do that automatically. So that's probably number three.
Nice. Amazing. And how do you base your pricing? How does it work?
Yeah, so it's very like standard SaaS. It's like a good, better, best pricing. So it's tiered, feature differentiation, how many influencers you can work with. So the smallest package, you can work with up to 100 micro influencers in your team. At the middle level, it's 150. At the scale level, it's 250. And then we have enterprise, which is anything beyond that. And then there's feature differentiation. So the starter package is only good for if you only kind of focus on content, you don't really care about reach, it's just one market, you don't have to be like all across Europe. And then the standard package is where you get the e-commerce integrations, you get access to all of our countries, you can work with more influencers. So that's kind of the go-to package. And then scale is if you're a multi-brand conglomerate, so if you have more than one brand and you need more than one brand on the platform, you need to go to the scale package. And then if you need like customized API integrations, then you go to enterprise. Pricing wise, it starts around in euros, that's around 500 euros. And then it goes up to our biggest client pays around 10,000 euros per month.
I wanted to ask you about the most common industries that you see with your customers.
Yeah, so fashion, beauty, apparel, you can put that on a fashion too, but jewelry, watches, and so on. And then we have like a third leg, which is fast-moving consumer goods. So that could be something like Emma Chamberlain coffee or PepsiCo, Coca-Cola. Those type of companies do really, really well on their platform too.
How competitive is your space right now, and how is different? Different
in the Nordics, where we kind of our strategy right now is get Nordic clients that want to expand into Europe. So we compete against other Nordic platforms. Denmark is rather greenfield. There's one competitor, but they only do a tenth of what we do, and their UI UX is 10 years behind. So it's not really that big of a competitor. Then in Sweden there's a competitor called Boostify, and in Norway there's somebody called Inspire Me. So there's one competitor in each market. So it's not a very competitive market in the Nordics. If we look more globally or pan Europe, then there's a lot of like really good German platforms. There's a couple of really good UK platforms, a couple of really good French ones. There's a couple of good Spanish ones. So there's definitely platforms out there that we compete directly with. But what goes for all of us is that we have some sort of very local geography where we're really, really good. And then we kind of help that local geography expand into the rest of Europe. That's very much the playbook in our industry. And we're dominating Denmark, and we are challenging Sweden and Norway right now. And I expect that we dominate Sweden and Norway within a few years.
Nice. And I'd love to know the story of the company and how you joined.
Yeah, so I'm not the founder. I'm the CEO. So founded by Mikkel roughly 6 years ago now, where Mikkel actually came out of affiliate, funny enough. And was doing affiliate marketing with nano influencers. So that was like hey, if you have friends that also likes this product as you, here's an affiliate link you can share, and then you earn money by nudging your friends to buy. That was basically the first product he did. And through that, he kind of learned that
Okay.
there was something called influencer marketing, and that was like 6 years ago. That was still a very new thing. But he was kind of learning that influencer marketing was becoming a thing, and everybody was focusing on like celebrities and macro and mega influencers, but nobody was really thinking about these smaller profiles, these micro influencers with small communities that he could see on his first product that he had a few of those with a couple of thousand followers on Instagram, and they were pushing a lot of product. So he was like, there's something here. If we can put this on a formula and kind of go one level up instead of nano, go to micro, then there might be a business. So he founded that with the idea of just kind of having a network of very micro influencers that you could push affiliate through. And that was, he kind of started on the influencer side, getting the influencers, and then he went to find the brands. And that's obviously evolved a lot ever since. But then it kind of turned into, through a lot of learnings with a lot of campaigns. And in the beginning, there was no platform. There was just an interface, and Mikkel was doing everything in the background manually, like really hacky. He kind of learned through executing all of those campaigns. Yeah, he learned that, hey, there's actually something that works better than affiliate. The clients where he was allowed to kind of work continuously with the same profiles over and over again, he was providing better results. So that was how Dream was born and how it kind of started to get where it is today. And then I think 3 years ago now, I was introduced to Mikkel, and he was kind of in the situation after 3 years, kind of, finding initial MVP and kind of figuring out what does product market fit look like and what's my business model and so on. He was kind of, at that point, Dreaminfluence was a hybrid of an agency and a bit of SaaS, and there was no pure business strategy. There was no like one way to do it in the business. Well, you want to pay like this? Okay, you pay like that. You want to pay like that? Okay, you pay like that. And I'd already built my first SaaS at this point, and kind of we were getting pretty successful at that time. So he asked if I wanted to come in and give him a bit of sparring, and I love to pay it forward. I love to help. That's also why I do podcasts like these. I love to just provide my insights, kind of give my learnings forward. So obviously I said yes to that. We had a cup of coffee. I gave him a bit of input. And then a couple of weeks later, he calls me and he's like, okay, so I'm getting an advisory board together. Would you like to join? I can't pay anything, but I would be humbled if you join. And I said, yes, of course. I liked you. I like your product. I think your vision is great. I'd love to help. So it started out as an advisory board. And then I think 3 months down the road, Mikkel kind of landed on, okay, I want to be a software as a service business. And I would actually ideally want to go the VC route. I would love to do a VC journey. And I said, okay, well, you're a first-time founder. You don't really have co-founders. We need to fix that. He had used 2 freelancers, and they were very young like him, and they built the platform, but they didn't have any equity. And so like, I've done this before. I've raised money before. I think it would be beneficial for Dream influencers if you had a more like real board, mostly for window shopping, because you already have the advisory board set up, but just to kind of show your feathers, show that you're surrounded by proven people that's done the journey before, that believes in you, that will at least help open some doors. So we then made it a professional board, where I became the chairman, and then was the chairman for roughly a year and a half, and then the company was actually sold. Because during the pre-seed race, it's not really a VC, it's a holding co, but one of the investors in the mix that actually had offered a term sheet on the terms that we were pitching in the pre-seed, which was $1 million on a 5 million pre-money valuation. They had agreed to those terms and wanted to invest. On the actual meeting, we chose to go with the specific company. On the actual meeting of signing the term sheet, they throw a curveball and they go like, yeah, so we talked about it in the IC, and if you're up for it, the old offer still stands, but if you're up for it, we'd like to buy the full thing and you'd become partners in our holding co, because it's more of a holding co structure than a VC fund structure. And the founders
Yeah.
chose to do that. And in
Wow.
that transaction, the CEO of the holding co asked if it was possible that I could take a more active role. And by total chance,
Wow.
I had just left my own company, which I founded, and was on
Yeah.
garden leave,
Yeah.
figuring out what is the next step. And that happened to be my next step. So that's how I ended up with Dream.
Wow. What a story. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing it. And
Totally.
I'd love to know what's the difference in what you do between chairman of the board and CEO? What changed?
So obviously, as a chairman, it's a bit more strategic. Obviously, when it's early stage, as a chairman, you're very hands-on, and you also do spar on operational issues. But my role as a chairman was very much kind of trying to mold Mikkel into a CEO that could scale a company. Being a first-time founder, he obviously had a lot to learn. So I was trying to pass down some wisdom and some learnings that could help him kind of maneuver around the glass walls that I had personally run directly into and broken my nose on, and make sure that he didn't have to do the same thing, and trying to fast track his journey by paying forward, and then obviously governance and kind of making sure we're compliant and that we follow tax regulations and so on, like any other board has to do. That was also part of the job. But really, the biggest part of the job as chairman was trying to help Mikkel navigate the challenges of finding product market fit and kind of scaling your team. Whereas becoming CEO, obviously, it's way more into the trenches. It's at the stage we are at, we just above 1 million ARR. It's way more in the trenches with the people, fixing problems on a daily basis. And now where we're starting to grow really fast, and we also are starting to grow the team. Obviously, my role is evolving now. I've been doing that once before, but now it's becoming more strategic. It's becoming more of a true CEO role, you could say. If we are talking the EOS terminology, I'm actually getting more time to be the visionary now and less time integrating. I actually have an integrator now. So we kind of in that transition as a company right now, where I become more of the visionary and less of the integrator.
This is amazing. Thank you so much. I love this story. And I'd love to know, how big is your team right now?
Yeah, so we are 18 people right now. And we are hiring. So by January, if we hit our FTE roadmap, we will be 23 in headcount. And then by end of March, we should ideally be around 28. And then we will kind of cap it out over the year. There will be a few more hires. So between 28 and 30 end of next year. And 18 right now.
I'd love to know the culture of the company, and also how do you choose the people that you hire? I know you're
sure.
really insightful on that.
Very, very, very big passion of mine, and I firmly believe that any company needs to have a very strong culture compass for hiring and firing. But we have 3 core values that we kind of live and obey to, which is freedom and responsibility. And to put a few words on that, we believe in no micromanagement. We believe in setting our people free to perfect their craft and do what they're best at. The reason we hired them is because they're talented at what they do, so we shouldn't tell them how to do it. They should tell us how to do it. We don't care if they come in at 10 or at 7 in the morning. We don't care if they leave at 2 in the afternoon or 11 in the evening. What we care about is outputs, and they are responsible for those outputs. So that's freedom and responsibility. Then we have accountability. So accountability is we keep each other accountable. We have a very strong instant feedback culture where if I spot somebody doing something that could be optimized or be done in a better way or could be twisted 2% to achieve a better result, I'll tell them on the spot. And the most amazing part is that the people on the floor does the same to me, even though I'm the CEO. It goes both up and down and sideways. And the whole reason that works is because we have a high level of emotional trust in the company. We know that nobody's going to scrutinize you for giving that feedback, and we know every time somebody gives feedback, it's done with the intention to assist. That's kind of accountability. And then thirdly, we have execution, and that can be described very shortly. We believe that no decision is worse than a bad decision, because you can learn from a bad decision. No decision is just not getting you anywhere. The way we then hire based on that is that we have a very structured hiring process. I won't go too much into detail because then this episode will be very long. But basically, we have a first interview that's done online or on the phone, where we screen the candidate. What we're looking for there is initial cultural fit, but also then it's, can we help this potential future employee succeed with their dreams by becoming part of Dreaminfluence. That's kind of the main takeaway from the first interview. Then they go on to taking a talent assessment test called TT38. Great test, look it up, my secret sauce in hiring. Basically, there's 34 talents, it scores you on. We have some DNA talents that, regardless of role, you need to have those talents, because those talents are what makes you able to be part of that culture. Then there's definitely role-specific talents that you need, and that means that a developer can, on the role-specific talents, be entirely different than the sales rep. And if you just looked at that, they would probably be like dog and cat. But if you then have those DNA talents that you share and have in common, it doesn't matter how different you are, because you have that common ground, and that is our core values that are our common ground. So that's how we hire and fire based on it. And just to throw a small anecdote in there, when I started as CEO in the company, the first thing I did was kind of identifying these core values with the founding team. And then after that, when I started, I got them into a meeting room. I was like, so guys, do you realize that after assessing the full team, a third of the company that you've hired, they were 9 people at the time or something like 12 people at the time. Do you realize that a third of the team that you've hired, so 4 out of 12, is bad cultural fits? And they kind of knew, but hadn't really put it into words. Like, so what's happening now is that we're going to find
like that.
Yeah, and that's how kind of religious we are about our core values. We hire and fire based on them, and that's why we've been able to go to past $1 million annual recurring revenue with a team of less than 18 people, and we've grown more than 130% for the past 12 months without really being funded.
This is really helpful. Thank you so much. Team is always first. And please share with us some challenges that you faced during your journey, or some mistakes that you did.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the main challenges I had when I joined as a CEO at Dream was that Mikkel, who was the former CEO, obviously now wasn't CEO anymore, and he founded the company. And he it was his decision to bring me on. He obviously vouched for it, but it is always a transition. I've been doing that transition myself in my former company, and that's obviously a huge thing to kind of let go of your baby and put somebody else in charge of it. What we did in the beginning was that we immediately transitioned him to CCO, and he then got in charge of go-to-market. And it didn't go too well in the beginning, and that was partly my fault. I think I should just have made him founder in the beginning, and then have let him shadow me, and I should have taken more control over the go-to-market in the beginning. Because what basically happened is that in April, when the transaction with Blazer Capital was done and they bought the company, I joined in July until August that same year. Last year, the company basically flatlined. There was no growth. The amount of churn was equal to the amount of new business, and that was due to a lackluster go-to-market. And I should have realized that as soon as joining. But what I did was instead focusing on fixing what on surface level was the problem, which was churn, and that was a problem. Churn was too high, but churn was partly too high due to a wrong go-to-market strategy. So what I did then in September was actually talk to Mikkel and remove him as CCO and just give him the title founder. That doesn't mean he wasn't at the management table anymore. He just didn't have a, you could say, he wasn't on the accountability chart anymore. So he wasn't accountable for the commercial part of the business, but he was still weighing in on decisions, and he was still part of my management team. He was still at the quarterly business review, monthly strategics, weekly tacticals, and so on. And then I had him shadow me until recently. And now he's the CCO again, and he's killing it. We just had our best month ever, and he's now the CCO. So I should have kind of realized that was the journey we needed to put him on earlier. That would have increased our growth last year, and we would have been maybe somewhere between 100 or 200,000 ARR further ahead right now, if I hadn't been too long about realizing that. Another thing that I think was also challenging, but definitely the right decision for the company. So there I actually made the right decision, but I was lucky enough to get the chance to bring on my former CTO from my first startup into the company. And we already had a founding CTO at this point. And I kind of had to talk him through all of the pros of getting Morten, our current CTO, in. But it was kind of the same dynamic happening there, where he went from being CTO to becoming basically just an engineer in quotations, because it's not just, it's really, really important. And he would all of a sudden have a boss that was not me, but somebody else that he didn't know and maybe didn't have trust by default for. So that was also a hard transition for him. But the difference between Rasmus, the founding CTO, and Mikkel was that Rasmus would no longer have a seat at the management table. So that was different. And that transition was really hard, and it took quite some months for Morten to build that trust. But there's no doubt in anybody's mind in the company today that it was the right thing at the time. But that was a big challenge to overcome, to really kind of continuously work with Rasmus on that he actually made the right decision for the company when he decided to step down as CTO, and that it was actually a great learning opportunity for him to get under the wings of Morten, because he does have the potential of becoming a truly great CTO someday. But now he just have a proven CTO to teach him how to do it. But when you're young and when it's your baby, that can be hard to realize early on. So I think that's definitely two things that has been super challenging, but ended out as good things. But it's probably somebody that not a lot of founders are faced on with early, kind of transitioning out of management positions in your own startup. But eventually, most founders will be faced with it. And if somebody as a founder is listening, I think that one thing you can do, if you are to take a learning from it, one thing you can do as a co-founding team is to sit down as early as possible in the journey and talk about who is actually long-term management material in the group, and if there is even anybody. And I think those that are long-term material, it's hard to tell exactly who is long-term material, but those that are that, first-time founders I'm speaking of here, those that are that, is often the founder that is a bit of generalist and not necessarily too specialist, and then they have the ability to reinvent themselves over and over and over again. Because what you have to be good as CEO, CTO, CCO, CPO, whatever C-level title it is, at pre-seed stage is a different thing at seed stage, and is another thing at Series A and Series B and Series C and so on. So those that can reinvent themselves all the way can stay all the way, but it's so few. Look at the companies that end up with a successful IPO or exit. How many of them actually have a founder in the CEO or CTO or so on role at that point? Most of them don't, because it's very, very, very few people that are very good at the early stages that are also very good at the later stages. And I think realizing that as founders early on and accepting that is the truth, and making a plan for what will happen in the future early on. That's really important, because otherwise you might end up with a founder that, due to ego, clinches on to a title, or due to a lust for control clinches onto a title and refuses to let go of that management role, even though they might be much better as a specialist in the organization and knows everything about the product or all the things about customer success or the clients or whatever. But they clinch onto that management role because they don't want to let go of control, or their ego can't handle that. They can't be C-level anymore, and it ends up hurting the company. So by having that very open discussion early on and thinking about what's best for the company, you can actually save your company, because it kills companies when founders are too proud to kind of let somebody else come in and make a difference.
So valuable. Wow. Yeah, honesty is really hard, but you explain it really well, and people need to understand that and stay humble in order to learn. It's for their best interest, for the company, best interest. So
for themselves too.
Yeah. Thank you so
then
much
they
for
might
that.
be able to learn from those people joining,
Totally.
and then next time they do a journey, they are able to take it further themselves, and next time even further, and next time even further. And let's be honest, most of us are not only gonna do one startup. Most of us are gonna do 3 or 4 or 5 or even 10, and that's because as an entrepreneur, you just can't help it. You have that creator gene. You need to do something.
Absolutely. I'd love to know the future vision for the company.
Yeah. So I'm actually quantifying it even more currently as we speak. But I genuinely believe that we have to be the place where micro-influencers go to create a living. We want to become the platform where micro-influencers that dream of making their part-time hobby into a full-time living, they come to us. Because if we can do that, then we can also provide the best influencers for the brands, and hence we can provide the best results for the brands, and then we win the market. So that's putting it very shortly. I kind of envision a headline sometimes where one of the big news outlets writes a story about us, and it says that we created 10,000 of jobs with less than 100 employees. And that's, you would think to yourself, what the fuck? How can you create 10,000 of jobs with less than 100 employees? But that's because we enable the influencers to live full time off their gig.
Wow. I love that vision. I used to be an influencer before Tekpon, and I know this is really needed. Because there are a lot of influencers really niched, high valuable audiences. But if most brands, if they don't have like 500K followers or 100K followers, they don't do anything with them, because
and often the value is bigger.
Yeah.
Because you have a very strong audience when you're smaller, because you connect with all of them. You can answer every comment, every DM. It's a way more tight-knit community that you can tap into.
Yes, absolutely. And now we arrived at the personal side. I'd love to know your story. Long, short, but how you started your career.
Sure. I'll try to keep it not too long, because there's quite a lot to tell and a lot of raw stories. But started my entrepreneurial journey pretty early on. So when I was 13 or 14, something like that, I did my first web shop. I had read a book from a Danish entrepreneur called Martin Thorborg, which inspired me to try and create my own web shop. So that's 15 years ago now. So 15 years ago, I started my first web shop, and actually had quite a good success. Sold jewelry, and ended up selling my stake of the web shop. I had a co-founder who did the jewelry. Ended up selling the full company to him, and got, for at that time 15-year-old kid, a lot of money. But it was not like life-changing money in any way. But for a 15-year-old kid, it was, of course, I think it was like 20 or 30,000 euros or something like that. It's not mind-blowing money, but a lot of money for a 15-year-old kid. And then I kind of asked myself, okay, so I could clearly sell online. That was what I'd been doing for a couple of years now. And funny thing is that the way I kind of created a full funnel was actually influencer marketing before it was called influencer marketing. So I took reality stars and I made them post with our jewelry on Facebook and wear it to the shows. And they basically just got product for it. So I kind of come full circle since. But then I thought to myself, can I sell in real life? Can I like sell a product that is not online through ads, but can I human to human sell? And when you're 15 years old, it's kind of limited which kind of sales jobs you can get. And I was still going to school, and so I went into telemarketing. And turned out I was a natural. First shift, did a shit ton of sales, and I remember the manager coming over to me and saying, "Stop." I'm like, "Why? It's going great." She's like, "No, stop, because we need to make sure that you are not like just putting garbage into the system, or you're just sending out." I was sending out newspapers to people that said no. So we have to listen to all of your sales. They were recorded before you can continue.
Okay. Wow.
And they went, and I was like, okay, it's good enough. Keep doing what you're doing, because we've never seen this before. So kind of did that.
Wow.
Found out I had a lot of fun doing it. Really enjoyed selling. I think that was just something I didn't know I was good at, but turned out I was really good at. And did that for a few years, because I had so much fun with it. So no company for a few years. And ended up becoming a manager at that company. While still going to high school. So when I was 17, I got a managerial position. I turned 18, got 120 salespeople or sales reps reporting into me. So obviously learned a lot early on there. And then I started to, during that period, after I became a manager, I also started to start another web shop, use some of that money I earned from the first web shop. Huge fucking failure. And that was because the co-founding team I found, I made the mistake of finding people like me instead of people that complemented my skill set. So none of us wanted to be at kind of the doing the inventory and sending the orders, and there was not really any of us that liked to do the bookkeeping and do the sourcing. We all just wanted to do marketing. And if all of the team just wants to do marketing, nobody cares about the product or about the operations, and that was a huge fucking failure. So burned a lot of the money from the first endeavor there, and then Quick Order came around. So Quick Order was my first SaaS startup. Got the idea from drinking a few beers with a mate at a restaurant first summer day, and the waiters were super busy, and we were like, why can't we order another beer? It's 2014. We should be able to order technologically somehow. There must be some tech that can solve this. So Quick Order was this all-in-one solution for restaurants and cafes. We started as a digital menu running on iPad. We turned out through multiple pivots to be a point of sale, staff scheduling, seat reservation, in-seat ordering with your phone, online ordering on the restaurateur's own webpage, AI on top of that, so that we could forecast on how many staff should you have at work next Friday between 3 and 5, 2 waiters, 1 chef, 1 dishwasher, and so on. So that was kind of my first true company, you could say. So that was a VC journey. I took that with my amazing co-founders from 0 employees to 70 employees, 7 million annual recurring revenue euros, and really build a success there. And then we did a merger in October 2020. I went from CEO to COO, did that for a bit more than a year, and then decided, due to several different circumstances, that, okay, baby has grown up now. I'm gonna move on to my next thing. Left the company, and then, rest is history.
Amazing. So you consider yourself better in early stage startups rather than big companies?
Yeah, so I don't think I'd fit into a plus 500 people company. I think I could easily do a couple of hundred. That'd still be fun. But it would probably be as CEO and not COO. I do like to. I can't do the integrator role, and I'm actually pretty good at it. But I like the CEO role more than COO. So you should never say never. But I do like to also be able to make an impact. And when you get to a certain size, it's getting harder and harder for yourself to make an impact in the company. But I genuinely like to. I think what motivates me the most is building something truly great, and for me that entails people mostly. So building a truly great workplace with exceptional people and an exceptional culture, and kind of seeing that grow, and making it highly efficient. It's a big motivation for me to try and achieve the most with the least amount of people. So get extremely talented people that can achieve more than average. That drives me a lot.
Yeah. It's the best feeling.
Yeah,
I love
it
that.
is. It
And
really
after
is.
all these experiences, I love to know your best piece of advice for a starting founder.
Okay, so first time founder.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so it's hard with one, but I'd say before you kind of decide to do something, really think hard about if it's the right thing, because it's probably what you're going to do in the next 10 years. And 10 years is percentage-wise, that's a big part of your lifespan. So really think about what it is you're going to do for the next 10 years. And if what you think you will be starting now, is that really what you want to do for the next 10 years? Especially because you will need co-founders, and most likely you will need investors. And that's kind of like a marriage, but you can't get divorced. So you're trapped in a marriage for the next 10 years. So really think about who is your co-founders.
Yeah.
Make sure they are complementary to what you can do, but that you have common ground. And think about the endeavor that you're going on. Is what you're trying to achieve or trying to change or trying to build, is that something truly great? Is that something that you can be motivated by for the next 10 years? Because I sadly, and I don't know if it's a Nordic thing, but I sadly see a lot of younger entrepreneurs going into it thinking I need to be financially independent within the next 10 years. That's not a motivation. It's fine. It can be a partial motivation, and it's all right to have as a goal. But there will be so many valleys of death that you will have to go through, where it's financially really irresponsible to keep going, but you will have to do it. And if your pure motivation or your only motivation is to become financially independent, let's be honest, there's easier ways to do that than doing a startup. And you're more likely to become financially independent from doing something else than a startup. So that should not be your motivation. I think that was.
And I have one last question that
a lot of things, but that's probably my advice to first-time founders.
It's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. I have one last question that I ask everybody on the podcast. What's your favorite SaaS product that you use apart from Dreaminfluence?
Oh, so my favorite one?
Yeah, favorite SaaS.
Probably HubSpot. It's a close, so probably HubSpot, because that was the first tool I implemented when I came to Dream, and I used HubSpot in quick order. So I think that kind of says it all. But I think a contender that's not up there yet, but that I have grown really fond of, is Limlist and Apollo. Those are really good tools too. But HubSpot must be taken up front, because that's kind of been following me, and the only other tools that's been following me is Google Drive and Slack, but that's not really my favorite tools. Actually, I kind of hate parts of them, but
you have to use them.
But still use them, because there's no good alternatives.
Is there anything else that you want to mention on today's podcast?
No, it was a pleasure. Loved doing this. It was super fun.
Thank you so much. It's like 10 minutes past, not 52, so it's amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Christian. It was a pleasure. See you.